Om Tridevibhyo Namaha. Welcome back to Trishakti Healing. In several of my conversations with you, I have indicated that the quality of a great spiritual life are three, and it's very easy to understand. The first one is Swadhyaya, which is self-study, understanding more about the phenomena of self, our own strengths, our own weaknesses, working on them and improving and getting better. That should lead us to the second pillar, and we can also do this parallelly, is Ishwara Pranidhan, which is understanding God, godlike forces, nature, Panchabhutas, etc., and giving our reverence, gratitude, having faith in them, and moving according to universal laws. And from there, once you take the Swadhyay and the Ishwar Pranidhana, you make real transformations and do everything that you need to do in life, which is your karma yoga appropriately. When you do this, you have a great combination for being a good spiritual aspirant. Now, in this, the question often arises, what are the many ways of doing Swadhyay or Ishwar Pranidhana? And how can I then learn from there? One of the encouragements that I give to my students, and I have also said this to several of you in your videos and when answering your question, look at your Kundali. In your Kundali, there are several beautiful answers that you can get, and it's amazing. It's a map of the soul's journey. I will be talking to you in this video and in some of the subsequent videos of how you could use certain parts of your Kundali to get great answers on Swadhyay, Ishwar Pranidhana, Karma Yoga, etc. Today's conversation, I'm going to focus on a very introductory level chat on the Lagna, understanding some simple aspects of the Lagna, and if you have a certain Rāśi in your Lagna, what could be an appropriate way of Swadhyay or Ishwar Pranidhana for you. Now, coming back to our Kundali, and if some of you don't have the basic understanding of this, when you look at the northern style of making your Kundali, the first house right on top of that structure is your first bhava, which is referred to as the Lagna bhava. The same thing is indicated by crossing over on the left top hand corner of the house when it is the southern style of the Kundali. And there are many other kinds of Kundali. You just could get a quick understanding of what your style is and how to read the Lagna in your Kundali. The first bhava in the northern style of the Kundali, that's what I would refer to right now for ease, not to confuse everybody. And I'm talking about the Lagna, the first bhava. So what is the Lagna and why should a spiritual sadhak be interested in the Lagna? Now, according to our traditional Jyotish explanations, a Lagna or the first bhav is how we naturally face life, how we have begun facing life, how we act in various situations, and how the world sees us and the world experiences us. Spiritually, if we understand Lagna a little bit more, it is also the path that we walk through which we grow, we face our challenges, and we learn in this life. It's largely about our presentation of self, our energies, our personality, and the way we approach life and the way others experience us. Simple understanding of Lagna. Now, there could be far deeper explanations of this. I'm not going there, but right now, for our today's video, this explanation is more than enough. Now, in that Lagna, there could be a Rāśi, a constellation that comes in and gives it certain kind of energy. So what is a Rāśi? A Rāśi is a quality of energy that comes into a particular bhava or a house. And in the Lagna, that energy can mean a lot of operating energy for our intelligence and the way we approach our life. So let's establish some fundamentals, and I'm going to speak about each of the 12 Rāśis when they come into the Lagna. What would that indicatively mean? And because of that, what are the methods of Swadhyaya that you would use or the Ishwar Pranidhana that you must do? I am also not going to get into a lot of complicated analysis of certain grahas aspecting your Lagna or certain grahas sitting in your Lagna. Some of those are very important analysis and should be done by a Jyotishacharya looking at your Kundali and giving you guidance according to the multiple angles that look at. So I'm keeping this very simple. The Lagna definition that I established, how you approach life and how you present yourselves, and from within that, how the lessons are learned. I'm just focusing on that. And here are some ground rules. When we study a Rāśi, and some of you who are Jyotish enthusiasts or Jyotish students, you would know this, that a Rāśi brings certain nature. So there is a Chara Rāśi, which is something that initiates, acts, pushes forward, etc. There is a Sthira Rāśi, which brings a little bit of stability, but can also resist change. Then there is a Dvisvabhava Rāśi, which can adapt, but it oscillates and it can also integrate things very well. So each of these nature or swabhavas, as we call, there could be pluses and minuses to it. Similarly, Rashis are also associated with tattvas, and these are tattvas which are the Mahabhutas, except for the Akasha tattva. All the other four tattvas are related to each of the 12 Rashis, and there are specific elements. Some Rashis are related to Agni tattva, three of them. They are related to action, transformation, assertion, etc. When they are balanced. And when Prithvi Tattva is associated, there is stability, there is materialization, there is endurance when it is balanced. The Vayu Tattva is associated with movement, thought, exchange, etc. And similarly, the Jala Tattva is associated with emotion, memory, and dissolution. Since there are 12 Rashis, there are 4 Tattvas to which these 12 are assigned. Each of these tattvas have 3 rashis which take that nature of the Mahabhuta. And what I gave you as the keywords are when they are balanced. If they are excess, you could see the aggressive side of the elements. If they are lesser in quantity or under some influence which is suppressing the effect, you could see the dampened side of it. So Agni at a Tej or Agni at dampened effect or Prithvi at a Tej or Prithvi at a dampened effect, that is what will happen when you have excess activation or damping effects, depending on aspects, conjunctions, etc. We are not going there in this video. The very interesting thing is, each Rashi also has a Purushartha associated with it. What are the 4 Purusharthas? We have Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. And coincidentally, in the Kala Purusha's Kundali, which is, as we say, the Lord Vishnu's Kundali as we study it, each of the bhavas also are associated with a Purushartha. And that's why the Rashis get the Purushartha basically. So the Lagna is a Dharmasthana. This means it focuses on purpose, direction, righteousness, etc. However, each Rashi is also associated with one of these 4. When a particular Rashi is associated with Dharma, that Rashi will bring the energy of purpose, direction, righteousness, etc. But when the Rashi is associated with Artha, it will bring with it the energy or the requirement of security, structure, achievements, etc. The Kama related Rashis will bring relationship focus, focus on enjoyment, focus on experience, etc. And the Moksha related ones will bring release, transformation, transcendence, etc. Similarly, the Grahas also bring these kind of Purusharthas and energy. So this is the light in which the Lagna and all the other bhavas get activated by certain Rashis. So with that basic rule established, let's now ask this question again, that how can a spiritual sadhak understand their Lagna and do the Swadhyaya, which is self-study, and Ishwara Pranidhan, which is focusing on the on God and the forces of nature. Swadhyaya refines your Lagna, because every Lagna, because every Rashi will give a certain quality to the Lagna. If you do Swadhyaya, if you do self-study, and if you focus on improving your quality, ultimately what are you doing? You are improving the quality of the Rashi which is sitting in the Lagna. Hence, improving the quality of the Lagna or the way the world experiences you. And I'll give you the 12 Rashis and the explanations alongside with that. Similarly, Swadhyaya, Ishwara Pranidhan does what? It helps you strengthen your Lagna Lord. Now, most of us who are students of Jyotish or we have been guided by a good Jyotishacharya know this, that the power of the Lagna Lord is extremely important in our Kundali. Like my Guruji will often say this, that your Lagna Lord, if it is strong, it will save you somehow. It will give you the grace and it will take you forward. That's the power of the Lagna Lord. So we set up this context to understand that in the Lagna, the Rāśi could come and it could give different energies. And then if you do Swadhyaya, you can improve the quality of the Lagna. And if you do Ishwara Pranidhana, you will strengthen the Lagna Lord. With that understanding, let's now talk about the 12 Rāśis and how they present with the Lagna. So we start with Mesh Rāśi in that sequence. Mesh Rāśi is under the lordship of Mangal or Mars. It is a Chara Rashi in that sense, which means it will bring that flow of action, etc. And I'll not repeat what I said earlier, those ground rules apply. It belongs to Agni Tattva and it is fundamentally focusing on Dharma as an energy. So when Mesha comes into the Lagna, what can it do? It can bring a surge of life force. It will bring initiative, it will bring assertiveness, etc. to the Lagna. So the way you approach life will have that surge of life, that initiative, etc. So Mesha could make you and the Lagna have the tendency of acting before reflecting, seeking independence and self-definition. It could also challenge, and very instinctively it could challenge. And there will always be a tussle between effort and courage. And that's what the battlefield will be. So that's how you will take on the world and the world will experience you broadly. I'm leaving that caveat. I'm not discussing grihas sitting in the Lagna or aspects on the Lagna, etc. There could also be multiple grihas, conjugations. Then the strength of the Lagna Lord would impact some of this. I'm giving a basic understanding. And the strength of the Lagna Lord especially could be impacted by placement in the 6th, 8th, or 12th house, etc. I'm not going into those complications. So keeping it very simple, if Mesha is the Rashi sitting in your Lagna Bhav, and as we say, it's a Mesha Lagna Kundali, then these are some of the presentations of the energy. So what should somebody with Mesh Rashi in their Lagna do? Very importantly, the self-study, the Swadhyaya has to focus on Kshama, which is patience. Patience is very important for the Mesha Lagna people. They also have to acquire Niyantran, which is self-restraint, and through that understand what is the right action to take. Remember a theme that I discussed. The Mesha brings the energy of act and then think. They are learning the lesson of life through action. So the caution, the improvement to do here is develop patience, self-study. Do the self-study so that you can develop patience. Do the self-study so that you can exercise restraint. Do the self-study so that you can acquire the right action. Now you may ask, these are virtues of anybody. So I'd say, yes, these are virtues that everybody should learn. However, for Mesha Lagna, this becomes very prominent because of the way the energy plays out. Now, anybody else who has Mesha Rashi in various bhavas could experience this kind of energy of Mesha in that bhava, like Mesha sitting in the Dhana bhava or the career bhava or the Bhagya bhava, could give some of this energy in those areas. And then you'll have to learn certain lessons. But ultimately, here we are talking about Mesha in the Lagna. So your personality will improve if you do these kind of swadhyayas, learning patience, learning self-restraint, learning what is the right action and even the right direction for me to move. The Ishwara Pranidhana that you need to do, or the submission to God that you need to do, is all actions should be mentally offered to your Ishvara, whoever is your Ishta Devata, whoever your Acharya, your Sampradaya has taught you to worship. You should offer all the actions. Fundamentally, that intention of offering all the actions to your God before you do it strengthens Mangal. You get Krupa when you offer the actions to God. So before you, let's say, for example, you are deciding to take on a journey or a new project, offer that action to your Ishvara and then take the action. This will bring Kripa to Mangal and balance Mangal and get you to do the right thing. So Mesha Lagna people, please make sure that your Swadhyaya is learning patience, self-restraint, and the right action to do. Offer all actions to God before you take them. That will strengthen your Mangal. With that, let's move to Vrishabha Rāśi in the Lagna. So Vrishabha Lagna is what we are speaking about. So Vrishabha Rāśi is governed by Venus. Its nature is Sthira and Prithvi Tattva, and it is associated with Artha. So you're looking for security, structure, etc. So for those of you who have Vrishabha Lagna, what will happen? The world will experience you, or you will approach life with a desire for stability, desire for sustenance, desire for material continuity, etc. So you would rather hold than initiate things. You would want predictability and continuity, and the world will see this in your personality and the approach that you take. You'd also resist change once you have committed to something, and then you could possibly measure your safety in something through the material gains, the relational stability, how you are holding everything together in a very stable way. So themes are security, resources, etc. So if that is the theme of the Vrishabha Lagna people, then what should they do? They should learn to not be possessive about things, because the need for security and stability can make them very obstinate in nature, and the world can experience that obstinate energy. So simple, the Swadhyaya, the self-study has to be, how do I stay non-possessive about things? How do I detach myself a little from especially the material, relational, comfort-oriented things about life? You have to not chase security. Otherwise, fear can creep in, and that can cause you to take wrong actions. So that's the self-study that Vrishabha Lagna needs to do. Similarly, the Ishwara Pranidhana, or the offering to God, has to be mentally offer all your comforts, all your pleasures to your Ishvara. Tell them that this is yours, you keep it, it's your choice when you give it to me, when you take it away. I know I am taken care of by you. That has to be the Ishwar Pranidhana that Vrishabha Lagna people do. Because if they get locked in their achievement, and remember, Vrishabha Lagna people over a period of time will become very successful and achieve fame, etc. But whether they are in the phase of struggle, or they are safe, secure, or they have got to a certain level of success, at all points in time, the offering of the comforts and the pleasure to the Ishvara will strengthen your Shukra, which is Venus. Gratitude strengthens and purifies Shukra. Even more than strengthening, here the purification of Shukra is important. Who's Shukra? Shukra is the Daitya Guru, but he's a Guru, but the Daitya Guru. So there are certain positive qualities of Shukra which we need to activate, and that will come through gratitude. Gratitude purifies Shukra. That's Vrishabha Lagna and what you should do. Now let's move to Mithuna Lagna. So when Mithuna Rāśi sits in the Lagna Bhav, that's when we refer to it as Mithuna Lagna. Mithuna is governed by Mercury or Buddha. It's a Dvisvabhav, dual natured Rāśi, and it will bring that to the Lagna. So people will experience that oscillation and swing. And it's also a Vayu Tattva and associated with Kama. So there'll be a desire to connect, exchange notes, multiplicity in connections, bonding will bring a lot of contrast. So they would like to gather information very rapidly. They will thrive on variety, stimulation, etc. They will adapt or adopt very quickly, but also struggle to settle down at the same time. So those could be some tendencies that Mithuna Lagna will display in life to people, etc. Their curiosity, conversations, etc. could be interesting. However, when it comes to self-study, what should Mithuna Lagna do? They really need to develop focus, ekagrita. So their self-study has to be, how do I bring focus in anything that I do, especially in conversations, especially when they're looking at things like data, information, connections, etc. And in that, how do they bring right speech? So every Mithun Lagna person must really focus and concentrate and ask this question. How do I bring right kind of speech? Did my words bring clarity, or did it bring some noise? I said something randomly. Statement might sound very fashionable, but really, did it really mean something? Now, yes, some of this could also be influenced by the position of who's governing your communication, who's governing the education, etc. But in general, Mithun Lagna should be careful and do this Swadhyaya, develop focus and the right speech. What should be their Ishwara Pranidhana, or what should they offer to God? They should mentally dedicate all their learnings and communication, and they do this at the beginning of every day and at the beginning of anything important. They should say, all my knowledge is at your feet, all my communication ability is at your feet. Please show me how to be truthful in what I do. Churn truth from my learning, churn truth through my communication. That's what the Ishwara Pranidhana of Mithuna Lagna people should be. The truth related orientation really strengthens Buddha and stabilizes it. And this is very important for Mithuna Lagna people. Yes, like I keep saying, there are other influences that need to be considered for every individual Kundali, but in general, for Mithuna Lagna people, this is how you look at Swadhyaya and Ishwar Pranidhana. With that, let's move to the fourth Rāśi, which is Karka Rāśi, and this is Karka Lagna we are talking about. So Karka Rāśi in the Lagna Bhav is Karka Lagna. Here, Chandra or moon is the governing planet. The Chara Tattva comes in here, or the Chara nature Swabhava comes in here. I stand corrected. It's the Chara Swabhava comes in and Jala Tattva comes in. And this Rāśi brings Moksha Bhav into the Lagna. Now, the nature of Karka Rāśi is emotional. It is also nurturing. It also is protective when it is balanced. So, depends on what's the tone and what's the kind of influence that it brings. So, you will see the Karka Lagna people sometimes protect, sometimes shelter, sometimes they are very emotional. There are emotional tides. Sometimes it's deep attachments. At other point in time, you will experience things very nurturing and gentle. There could be subjectivity at one point in time. At another point in time, it could be complete chaos. So that's the way Karka Lagna could come across. So anything from belonging to emotional safety to care could be the themes that are coming. So Karka Lagna people, when they do Swadhyaya, self-study, they need to ensure that their compassion, and compassion is sort of inbuilt in the Karka Lagna people. So their compassion element needs to be balanced with detachment and vairagya. So how do I stay objective? I can bring emotions and nurturing, etc., into a relationship or into a cause or what I do. But how do I stay detached? How do I give, but how do I not overpower? Am I nurturing or am I clinging? So these are the kind of important questions. So the theme is vairagya or detachment along with the compassion that they naturally bring as a strength. When it comes to Ishwar Pranidhan and what they need to offer to God, they need to offer all their emotions, their emotional flow, their ability to nurture, care, etc. to God before reacting. So before they get into a situation and entangle with that situation or engage with that situation with their emotion, with their care or their natural energy, they need to offer it to the God, and they need to then do what they need to do with balance. That surrender of their emotional strengths and their capability, that can calm Chandra down. And especially if they focus and worship on Ma Durga or Shiva, it can be very calming for Chandra and bring out the positive qualities of the moon. Moon can be a very nurturing planet. So with that, we move to Simha. And when Simha Rashi is in the Lagna Bhav, that is when you have Simha Lagna. So Surya's got the Adipatya of Simha Lagna, Simha Rashi and Simha Lagna. It's a sthira swabhav Rashi, and Agni Tattva is associated. It brings dharma into focus. So a dharma oriented Rashi is now sitting in a bhava which has dharma in its nature. So in that sense, it's good. So it will bring natural authority, leadership quality, radiance, etc. However, they also need to understand that they may command rather than just follow. So followership may be a problem. They may always need visibility and respect. There is also an element of pride and dignity that comes in and can quickly go overboard. So, so they need to learn moral leadership and rightful authority. So their swadhyay has to be related to the seva bhav and humility in leadership. So they have to understand, am I doing duty or am I running after recognition? What am I looking for? Selfish gains, or is my benevolence reaching to all the people that it needs to reach to? That's what will give them a very rightful authority and rightful grounding. Their Ishwara Pranidhana has to be to offer all their success and all their authority back to Ishwara. So any praise, any recognition, anything that they get, they offer back to Ishwara so that it doesn't become ego and pride. That ego surrender is what will really purify and balance out Surya's energy. Surya's energy can burn or it can nurture, or it can come across as a very dull energy which is not getting utilized. But to balance that Surya, that ego surrender is very important. Unnecessary ego can either make you that burning sun or the dull sun. Either of those don't help with life. And Surya is a very important graha for the Kundali as a whole. In fact, it is said that unless Surya's power really comes through, a lot doesn't really unlock in the Kundali. So not just for the Lagna power, Surya is even otherwise very important for the Kundali in general. So that was the Simha Lagna people. Now we come to the Kanya Rāśi in the Lagna Bhava, and that's when Kanya Lagna happens. Kanya Lagna and Kanya Rāśi is ruled by Buddha, and it's a Dviswabhav uh, Rāśi sitting there. It's associated with Prithvi Tattva and brings in the energy of Artha. Now, generally, the Kanya Lagna will have the energy of analysis, service, corrections, etc. It'll pick up flaws very, very instinctively and can reach there. And it'll also seek practicality, usefulness, efficiency, etc. This Lagna can bring the energy of improvement of systems, processes. It can turn the intelligence inwards. Some of those things can happen. So what should Kanya Lagna people focus on when it comes to Swadhyaya? They should focus on acceptance and peace, shanti. That acceptance is very, very important. Otherwise, what will happen is they will question everything. They will want to correct everything. They will want to meddle with everything, and everything doesn't need to be corrected. So, very important to ask: is something necessary, or is it compulsive that I'm doing? That swadhyaya, that self-study of acceptance and shanti will help them focus their energies to make the right correction. That is when the real power of Kanya Lagna will be experienced by themselves and the world, and the learnings will be balanced. In Ishwara Pranidhana, what is to be offered to God? Their effort, all effort needs to be offered to God. God, guide me, my effort to get to the right outcomes. So before they focus on outcomes, their effort itself has to be at the feet of God and nature or whatever powers that they believe in. That offering of their effort is what will relieve the Kanya Lagna people of the anxiety that they have about getting to all the results. So if effort itself is offered to Ishvara, that anxiety will tend to settle down. How? By improving the quality of Buddha. That surrenderance will definitely improve. That acceptance and Shanti will improve Buddha's quality. Acceptance is very important because Buddha is what? Buddha is ultimately the cognitive capability, the intelligence, the mental ability. So if you're accepting, your critical nature will go down, your judgmentalism will go down. That's how Buddha will silence down. That brings us to Tula Rashi sitting in the Lagna Bhav. That's when Tula Lagna happens. Tula Rashi is governed by Shukra, Venus. It has a Chara Swabhava, Vayu Tattva associated with it, and brings in the Purushartha of Kama. So from that focus, the Tula Lagna will inherently be focused on balancing things, balancing relationships, sort of be concerned with people being associated and involved in things, a general sense of social harmony, etc. And this is what happens when it balances up. So there is a need to seek equilibrium, need to seek fairness, need to reflect on self through the point of view of others, avoiding constant conflicts or instinctively avoiding conflict in that sense. So a lot of mutuality and shared experiences are very valuable to the Tula Lagna people. However, that is when they can overdo it. So they really need to understand what is really the dharma of this relationship. How much does this relationship demand? What does this relationship demand? By what process does this relationship demand this? Not every relationship has to be overindulged in. Not everything has to have mutuality. Not everywhere do you need to take everyone along. You have to also take your own stand. Sometimes you have to take the stand of truth. Sometimes you have to take the stand of self expression. Sometimes you have to take the stand of harmony. So, when harmony is required, do that. When truth is required, do that. When self expression is required, do that. When you need to completely back off and give somebody else the prominence, do that. But that dharma has to be really understood by the Tula Lagna people, considering all other influences. That Ishwara Pranidhana that they need to do is in mind, relationships should not belong to them. All their relationships, all their connections, all their approach to harmony, etc., should be surrendered to their God, and that should be the focus of restoring balance to Shukra, Venus. So, if this is done, if they devote all their relationships to their Ishvara, the energy of Shukra is going to get restored and rejuvenated in the right sense. And that will bring a great balance to their life. And Shukra's wisdom will work for the Tula Rashi, then Tula Lagna people then. And with that, we will talk about Vrishchik Rashi sitting in the Lagna Bhav. That is when Vrishchik Lagna happens. So Mangal, which is Mars, is the governor of this energy. It has got the lordship. It has the Thira Swabhava, Jala Tattva, and Moksha as the Purushartha that it brings. There's also an interesting thing that happens here. We in Jyotish say Kuja Vat Ketu. So Ketu, which is said to be similar in nature or having some qualities or mimicking the nature of Mars, is also said to have co-ownership of uh, Vrishchik or Scorpio in that sense. Now, Vrishchik in its own sense as a Rashi is very depth oriented because that Jala Tattva has a lot of depth and a lot of secrecy. It could also bring deep transformative waves, and that can be really heavy transformation. So there is sometimes a tendency to guard against vulnerability. Sometimes there is an intensification of emotion, but inward. It will not get expressed outward. There may also be a desire to seek control, especially when anything transformational is happening. And if they're out of balance, then it can be a lot of heavy control that they put in, or even try to ensure survival. Survival may actually not be a problem at that point in time, but they will just kick into that mode. That could happen with the Vrishchik Lagna. Uh, so so that emotional renewal becomes a big challenge. So what should they understand? They should focus on transformation. The natural power of Vrishchik Lagna comes out when they focus on transformation, but they have to do it without control. They have to learn to do it through processes. They have to learn to do it with faith. They have to learn to do it through skills. They have to learn to do it through their intuition rather than their inherent nature of wanting to control things and keep it rigid. So they have to bring the power of their own depth, the depth of their Jalatattva and their Rashi into the work. So study transformation very deeply. The Swadhyaya should be study transformation very deeply, but how do I do it without really having control? The Ishvara Pranidhana that needs to be focused on is that whatever pain, intensity that comes up, emotional churn that comes up, they should offer that to their Ishvara silently. So don't keep things bottled up. And Vrishik Lagna will have that tendency to bottle up. Don't do that. Offer it to your Ishvara. And that release is what will balance Mangal from any sense of secrecy and not have any challenging impact of the Ketu's energy also. That brings us to Dhanu Rāśi in the Lagna Bhava, Dhanu Lagna people, governed by Guru, having the Swabhava, Dviswabhava there, and Agni Tattva, and brings the Dharma, Purushartha into the Lagna. So they will be oriented with deep beliefs, deep meaning, deep knowledge. They would also be focused on an expansion of the worldview, seeking truth, seeking philosophy. They value freedom over any kind of structure. Unless put into structure, they would typically act on belief systems, etc. Remember, I'm saying all these qualities without really taking into consideration any other influence, aspects, conjunctions, etc. So keep that in mind, right? So in that sense, what does then the Dhanu Lagna person need to focus on in Swadhyaya? Viveka, discernment. They really need to develop observation and knowledge into insights. That insight needs to be processed into wisdom of what is to be done where, and use that to understand what is right, what is wrong. The Dhanu Lagna person really needs to study what is Viveka, what is discernment. How do I tell the right from the wrong, the timing of things, the proportion of things, the process of things, the practicality of things, the way to do things with impact that is good for not just me, but others and the environment. That discretion is to be made. Even the viveka of what is permanent, what is not permanent, what is temporary, what is slightly medium term, long term, etc. The Dhanu Lagna really needs to master all of these things. Otherwise, the knowledge that Dhanu Lagna tends to accumulate can quickly become their ego. And that's where in their Ishwara Pranidhan, what they need to offer is they really need to offer their learnings, their knowledge, their study, their worldview to God and say, God, give me wisdom out of these things. Otherwise, it can quickly become their ego. So the more they offer all their knowledge and understanding and worldview to Ishvara, the more Guru or Brihaspati will stay wise and not become rigid in its ways and not given to things like anger and manipulation, etc. Then comes Makara Rashi sitting in the Lagna Bhava, and that is Makara Lagna people governed by Shani, having the Chara nature and Prithvi Tattva, and that brings in the Artha aspect into the Lagna. So, Makara Lagna people will largely be focused on karma, endurance, a structured effort, prioritizing responsibility and the load of responsibility also. They would accept delays. They would build slowly but permanently, also suppress emotions for duty. They may go through all of these kind of things. And that burden, that over responsibility could also bring in rigidity. So for Makara Lagna people, when they do Swadhyaya, it's very important to study Karma Yoga. What is really Karma Yoga? But how do I stay nourished? So for them, it is important to nourish themselves also in the process of doing the Karma Yoga. So that balance of Karma Yoga with nourishment to their soul, their body is what Makara Lagna people need to master. Am I really enduring things wisely or am I punishing myself? That's an important question for them to ask. In Ishwara Pranidhana, they need to offer all their burden, all their fatigue to Ishwara, and that offering of the burden and the fatigue and that dense energy that they carry inside them is going to soften their Shani and help Shani to give them the right kind of results. That's Makara Lagna for you. Kumbha Rashi in the Lagna Bhava. This is Kumbha Lagna people, again governed by Shani. This is a sthira nature. The Vayu Tattva is associated with it and it brings the Moksha Bhava into the Lagna. Now, in general, they are very collectively conscious but reform oriented. They can also go into abstractions of things. Very good to bring systemic thinking into something. They can also question norms. They will value ideal solutions over any sense of intimacy. So they may move away from people as compared to enforcing their ideas. They would enforce their ideas and ideals more. Mentally, they may also drift into the future. So, for the Kumbha Lagna people, it's very important to balance their idealism with humaneness and on ground practicality. So they need to study, how do I stay humane even though I may want to do reforms, I may want to bring in systemic change, etc. My ideas may be great, but do I take people along with that? That's the self study that Kumbha Lagna people need to really do. Their Ishwara Pranidhan has to be to offer all their ideologies and all their ideal thinking to their Ishwara, so that any work that they carry really brings meaningful impact to everybody around. That grounding can really stabilize the Shani Tattva. Remember, the Kumbha Rashi also has co-ownership with Rahu. And Rahu can bring in very flighty ideas fairly easily, also challenge authority and systems, etc. So the moment you offer all your ideologies, all your work approach, especially reforms that you want to do to your Ishvara, it'll bring a lot of grounding, stabilizing energy to the Shani Rahu combination. And lastly comes Meena Rashi in the Lagna Bhav, that is Meena Lagna people. Here Guru's energy is there, Brihaspati's. It's a Dvisvabhava Rashi and associated with Jalatattva and the Moksha Purushartha. Meena Rashi is associated with dissolution, compassion, sense of completion. It can absorb fairly easily, can also resist, but it can absorb, but it can also have very porous identity, a lot of emotionality and spirituality involved. Typically will seek dissociation with everything and going into spirituality, so that transcendence over any sort of structural society that it is around. So that sense of release, etc., is there. Meena Rashi does best when it stays in surrender, forgiveness, grounded in action. So they have to learn boundaries along with their compassion. Otherwise, the compassion itself that Meena Rashi carries can create a lot of challenges for it. So they need to learn boundaries. So the Swadhyaya, the study has to be learning boundaries with compassion. Am I in a space where I am doing this within certain rules, certain regulation? That's the question. Am I overdoing this? It's an important question. Or Minrashi can also withdraw a lot. So again, they need to learn that boundary. What's the healthy boundary of engagement and healthy boundary of doing things? Their Ishwara Pranidhana has to be to offer their empathy and whatever they're doing, even their own suffering, to Ishwara continuously. And when they do that, it prevents their Guru, their Brihaspati, from going into utter confusion. And that will keep them grounded. So that, my friends, is the 12 Rashis when they become the Lagna Bhav, and what should be the Ishwara Pranidhana. Remember, like I said at the beginning, this is a very simplistic analysis that I gave so that anybody who's a spiritual sadhak can quickly look at their Lagna Bhava and without really getting into the complication of which planet is sitting there, which conjunctions are there, which aspects are happening, or any other influence, which Mahadasha, etc. is. In general, what can they do? Because the Lagna Bhava is how the world is experiencing you. The Lagna Bhava is how you're approaching your life. The Lagna Bhava is the path on which you will walk to learn the lessons of your life. Hope you're able to take some valuable lessons out of here and work on this. I will be speaking very soon with you on the challenges that every Lagna brings. Also, your Chandra Rashi, which is when a Rashi has moon in it, what challenges that Rashi can bring and the nakshatras, etc. So stay tuned and set an alert for these videos. All of these would significantly help you with managing your life and also in your spiritual pursuits. So stay tuned, make good use of this, continue your spiritual growth, continue doing Swadhyaya, continue doing Ishwar Pranidhana, continue bringing the energy of that transformation into your karma and make the very best of your life. I will see you very soon. Till then, lots of love, lots of blessing. Jai Mahakal, Jai Mahakali.